What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, host of the Philly Talk podcast, but today we are back with a Battle Birds podcast pregame live show. You got Hurt Season over there, you got Batman over here, and Philly Fresh will be jumping in at the end. He had an emergency. Hopefully he's all good on his end. But how you feeling? 3-0 sounds good to me. Let's get 4-0.
Hey, I think it's going to be one of those atmosphere games, Mike. You know, you got rainy, windy, hey, I'm looking forward to it, man. I mean, it's going to tell us a lot about our trenches because we're going to have to go out there and earn this one.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. The Jags are no one to sleep on, and I do think that Dougie P wants to come into Philly and get a W. He's been talking a lot about, his time in Philly this week, and rightfully so. I'm surprised he said he never saw the stadium, the statue up front close. He never saw it. I guess he was too busy just worrying about football stuff. But how do you feel that playing into hurting the Eagles or helping the Eagles? Just Dougie P's mindset coming into Philly.
I mean, obviously, I think somewhere deep down he would like to win the game. Like, you know what I mean? I think that there is a relationship between the front office and Dougie P, and I think Doug wants to kind of be proven that he was right and he could still do the job. And I don't think that was ever really the front office's perspective, though. I just think that, and I'm going to call a spade here, Mike. I think they rightfully called out the fact that he cannot judge coaches. Like, he's horrible at it.
He brought Press Taylor over there.
Yeah, I think he was right that, a coach should have the ability to make his choices and live and die by them when it comes to the coaching staff. But he was making terrible decisions here later on in Philly. Once that first wave of our coaching staff kind of left, man, I mean, we had trouble here. So, I mean, clearly Doug wants to win the game. It's just one of those situations where I love Doug. I respect everything Doug did for us. I mean, the dude's got a part of the city's heart here. With that said, you got to take an L today, Doug. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree. I tweeted a little bit before this. Two things that we got to do. The Eagles got to give Doug Peterson today. One, a standing ovation, rightfully so, and a loss. He got to leave this place with a loss. I mean, look, one game ain't going to make or break the season, but to come out here and be the only team undefeated really sets the tempo for this first quarter of football. And a lot of people want to chalk it up to, we played Washington, we played the Vikings and the Lions. Again, I don't know what's going on in London right now, but I do think the Vikings and the Lions are better football teams than people say, and we handled our business in the last two games. The second half jitters, though, how do you feel about that? Do you think we get some type of points in the second half today?
I hope so, just so the narrative stops. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the narrative at this point is kind of becoming because there's something under the surface. I can't just completely try to shut down the narrative because under the surface, there's some imperfections that are preventing us from putting up points, right? I mean, our 4-minute offense is a little concerning. Trey Sermon's going to get his crack today. I don't know how many carries that's going to translate to, but, wet, windy football game, if you build a lead in the first half, you know what I mean? This is the situation I'm kind of looking for. When you get to these situational type, scenarios, does anything improve, right? Did the penalties stop? The penalties, man, the Vikings game, the second half, the penalties were a killer, right? I mean, to be real, I like Jacksonville's team. I'm not trying to take shots at them, but they don't have Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. Those dudes are hard to match up with on your interior. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I kind of expect that we'll have to be a little bit more successful, but you got really good linebacker play in Jacksonville. So it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be an interesting matchup in terms of the physicality, what takes place in the trenches, right? We always talk about the back seven, but in this game, it's kind of the front seven battle, right? What happens with the front seven of these defenses?
Yeah, I agree. And, we've been able to get pressure. We got a lot of pressure against Carson Wentz, but it's his style of play. He likes to hold the ball. Doug Peterson's doing a great job with Trevor Lawrence, just getting the ball out of his hands quickly. I mean, he was throwing the ball last week in 2.3, 2.4 seconds, something along them lines. So, getting him out moving and getting the ball out of his hands. So we definitely have to try to mirror match that. Let's talk about Avonte Maddox because I want to get your take on that. How do you think that affects? What do you think? Do you think Josiah Scott, Zach McPherson comes in, or do you think we could see C.J. Gardner-Johnson playing in the slot a little bit more because of Kevon Wallace playing safety? He's been coming in on the big nickels and the giant dime, I should say. Look, so how would you go about that situation?
That's a tough one, Mike, because what you're talking about is do you take a guy that is a proven commodity and put him in at the slot, and then weaken the safety position by saying like, look, they're covering the back half of things. Just keep everything in front of you. But at the same time, like it's like you're shuffling two spots though. You're still shuffling two spots on the back end of your defense if you do that. What I would do is I would probably move Gardner Johnson in at the slot. Personally, if it was my decision, I don't think that's what the Eagles are going to do, though. I think they're going to see Josiah Scott. Personally, is I think what they're going to do. Now, what I'm curious of, Mike, is we've all been like, hey, man, Gannon, feels more comfortable with the secondary. We see a little bit more from Gannon. He was locking those nickel spots. He had them locked out, and then you were kind of matching on the outside. So, you had rules. So if anything vertical, we carry. We're carrying all the way down the field. But, there's a match quarters aspect to this, and depending on what happens, you might carry and pass off, depending. So do we start seeing some more spot drop zone crap again? That's the stuff like, Mike, you know me, bro. I hate that defense. I'm not a fan of spot dropping. I don't like spot drops because a good enough quarterback just eats that up. It's not like you have to get a lot of pressure home to win in spot drops. So, I mean, I'm curious how they'll play it. I'm not going to lie. The rain and the wind and the conditions maybe help us a little bit here. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I do see them just using Josiah Scott possibly early on in this game. It is what it is. Hopefully, though, we play enough big nickel, big or giant dime that we do see Kavon Wallace. Because, like I said, I think if you have the front, if your cornerbacks are doing everything they need to do, you can. It's less you got to ask from the safety position in totality. But I think that's the first hiccup we've had this season. First injury of Avonte Maddox. The Eagles got to stay healthy for sure. How do you feel about Devin Lloyd? Because he's actually having a really good season. He won Defensive Player of the Month, Defensive Rookie of the Month. How do you see him and like you said, the linebackers attacking the Eagles this game, especially if it's going to be a rainy run type of game?
They shoot downhill. They're going to shoot downhill. I mean, Devin Lloyd, I put him as my number one rated linebacker in the draft class. I thought that when you look at the scouting perspective of things, when you're looking at the analytics behind height, size, the profile, the movement skills, he played lesser, Utah State, playing lesser competition, to be fair. And that always kind of drew me back a little bit on him, you know what I mean? But I knew that he had if you're looking at those attributes, he had those things. And he's shown it so far in the early portion of the season. Now, hey, look, man, he's going to have to really learn how to get linemen off of him in this game because we know that we like to get our linemen up to the second level and engage. So we'll see. I mean, if those defensive tackles cannot keep him clean, I do think that our offensive line can be a real challenge for a team. That's going to be the thing is like, how do you stop the Eagles from getting up to the second level? Because, hey, man, I like Devin Lloyd. He's a good-looking rookie. My money's on Jason Kelsey if he reaches the second level on him. That's the key is can those defensive tackles keep the linebackers clean, right? Those linebackers need to be able to scrape over the top. You can't do that if Jason Kelsey's pancaking you.
True. That's true. I'm also looking at both these quarterbacks this game for the simple fact that Trevor Lawrence, a young guy coming off a AFC Player of the Week award on the offensive side, and we got Jalen Hurts, who just got the Player of the Month offensively for the NFC. So these are two young quarterbacks that have had good season so far. They're coming off a pretty decent award. How do they respond? Do they let that get to get to their head? How do you think these two match up, and who has the better day?
Out of Jalen Hurts and
Trevor.
Trevor. Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts had the better day because he's got the better targets. I'm not saying that Jacksonville has bad targets, but they have no depth. Their depth is terrible at wide receiver. I'm just going to be honest. And they're already down a wide receiver. With that said, Christian Kirk is a very good football player. And
who plays in the
slot.
It's
kind of funny because, but the thing is like Christian Kirk is kind of like I thought Justin Jefferson would be what Christian Kirk has been for Jacksonville. And then Justin Jefferson just became like one of the best wide receivers, period, of alignment. He went way above what I think a lot of people were thinking. But Christian Kirk kind of has that same kind of ability, right? To where most people would view him primarily as a slot guy. He can play outside and you move him around. He plays out of the backfield. He does a lot of unique things. So he's a unique matchup. And that's a guy like in this type of environment, in this type of game, you can't lose track of where Christian Kirk is on the field. know where this guy is on the field, like, because they're going to try to do some things to get him free, especially when they're already down a wide receiver with poor depth at the position. So I think that's an area you got to watch out for. I did see a narrative when I was making my video coming from Eagle fans where I think people misunderstand how good Trevor Lawrence is outside the pocket. People think he's unathletic and he just wants to play in the pocket. That's not true. We got to be careful of that thought process, guys. He's better than you know when it comes to – he's actually – I think he's got the most completions or the most yards outside the pocket. So, I mean, you got to be careful with that. He can move the ball around on you a little bit, which is part of the reason why he's only got 2 sacks. Like, that's why he's only been dropped 2 times on the season. But I will say this. If I'm not mistaken, both of those sacks came against Washington, and he also got hit for 2 intentional groundings against Washington. So, if you can get him to hold the ball, I said the keys of my game, you got to make this guy hold the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. Preferably about 2.6 seconds. That's enough time to get your pass rush on. You can do damage there. But if this guy's getting it out under 2.5 seconds, and like I think he was like 2.39 last week, you got to play up, man. You can't get these little dump offs. He's going to take these dump off passes. They like to screen a lot. They will screen a lot, this team will. Solid tackling. You know what I mean? Try to make this man hold the ball a little longer. That's the key. But I would take Jalen Hurts, man.
Yeah, I agree. We know that Dougie P likes his screens and all that. Mm-hmm. And I think, the trenches, like we talked about the trenches early on in this stream, and with the weather conditions, it's really going to pay. Whoever's trenches shows up is going to be the team that wins this game. Let's talk about 4th downs for the simple fact that Doug Peterson was the guy who kind of made it the common thing. I mean, there were plenty of guys before Doug Peterson that would go for it on 4th down, but he was the one who really started doing it in big games, early in the games, while they're winning, while they're losing, it didn't matter. He was the Mr. Go for it on 4th down. So far this season, Jacksonville Jaguars defense has been great. They have faced 4 4th down tries and 0. So nobody has got a 1st down on a 4th down conversion on Jacksonville. We see Nick Sirianni is one of these guys who like to go for it on 4th down. I think that down is going to be big. If we end up losing that down, it could be how we end up losing this game. I did not like the 4th and 1 last week against Washington, the Zach Pascal. I mean, if it's 4th and 1, I understand the creativity there, but we're stronger than you. We're going to go for it, especially when you got Jalen Hurts. But how do you feel about 4th down turning out to be what either makes this game or breaks this game?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. That's a great statistic for Jacksonville. It is. But might I point out, you haven't played this dude on a 4th and short. Because it's a whole different challenge. It's a whole different challenge, man. Like it is. You haven't played this offensive line. You haven't had to play against this quarterback. We saw what happened to Detroit. And it wasn't necessarily 4th down. They would get Jalen in a 3rd and long, and he was almost unstoppable. Like he was just like kind of laughing at him, and he completely took away the heart of the defense. They were just absolutely frustrated because it was like, man, we're doing everything right. We're playing aggressive. We're trying to get after this dude. This dude breaks a tackle on us, and now he's going down the field for 16 yards on a 3rd and 15. So, I mean, this is a different challenge when you got Jalen Hurts on the other side. There's just no doubt about it. I think it's a real strength of his game. But I think he pointed out something, Mike, like sometimes we can be too cute, right?
Yeah.
Got to be a little too creative, right? It's 4th and 1. Just get Jalen Hurts under center. Let's go get this 1st down. Stop playing. And I get what Doug was trying to do. Like, would you rather run right at Jonathan Allen in pain, or would you rather try to get to the outside there? I get what he was trying to do, but it's like, I mean, we can't RPO read this. We can't, you know what I mean? Like, we can't do something a little different than this, man. Like, this probably not the move here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting way of looking at the short downs, 3rd, 4th down. Doug is aggressive. Nick is aggressive. Who has the key moment in the game? Who stops one? Who picks up one? Like, it's those key moments that are going to really, really matter.
Yeah, and actually, I had it on my Twitter. I forgot what the exact one is. I'm trying to look it up. But we are 2nd and 3rd. Oh, hold up. We're 2nd and 3rd down conversion rate. We convert on 3rd down 49% of the time. That's pretty darn good so far. It's still early, but again, if we get it done on 3rd down, we won't have to do the 4th down stuff. But I do believe that if you look around the league, we're one of the best teams at converting short for all the things you said. We got Hurt season, and him alone is a very, very tough task to stop anything under 2 yards with his sneaking and his strength and his athleticism.
Mhm.
So let's see how this goes today. Doug Peterson, though, we talked about this a little bit. Do you believe he'll get booed or send an ovation?
I mean, there's always going to be some people, Mike. You know how it is. There's always going to be some people that are going to boo. Like, mostly, I think he's going to get a standing ovation. We all know what Doug is. We know what he meant to the city. He's a class act. Like, he's never really said a negative word after he left the city. I don't have the same feelings about Doug as I do about Carson.
Oh, no, yeah.
You know
I
what I mean?
totally
Like,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, Carson left. Everything about the Carson Wentz situation, all the reports that came out, the tension, the whole him being a teammate, and then how he left and all that stuff. There's no going back. But Doug Peterson was a guy, like I said, I understood why we had to move on for him or why we did move on for him. I think it was more of a mutual thing, like we all talked about. But I wasn't necessarily like happy about it. I had a lot of respect, and I still do, for Doug Peterson. And look what he's doing with this young Jaguars team already, a Jags team, a 2-1 start, back-to-back wins, and their wins, like I said, they blew out the Colts 24-0, and then they beat up on the Chargers 38-10. That's 62-10 in their last two. So they're feeling themselves. That's why the rain might be a little bit helpful for the Eagles, but we definitely got to come into this game understanding the fact that we are 3-0, but the team that we're playing is not the Jags of old. It's a new team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, they won big games. I mean, the Chargers game, I think they caught the Chargers at the right time, if I'm being fair.
Yeah.
I think they definitely caught the Chargers at the right time, where I think that game would have been a lot more competitive. But with that said, you play who's on your schedule when they're on your schedule, and all you can do is win your football games. And as you pointed out, they got almost a 50-point advantage over the last 2 weeks on their opponents. I mean, week one, I talked about it. I said week one is not always the best indicator who's a really good team, right? They caught an L from Washington. But since then, we see that this is a better football team than a lot of people thought.
Yeah, and that first game is always, not the end all be all, because it's early in the season. It's like somewhat of an extension of a preseason game. If there's going to be rust, it's going to be in that first game. Shout out to that Eagles dude with the $5 super chat. He said, we just going to act like hood rat Batman ain't a thing. Real talk, though. You two are the Batmans of the Eagles talk. Keep up this stuff. Hey, we appreciate you, that Eagles dude. Love the swoop profile pic. Man, it's Batman. Like I said, I went to Spirit Halloween over the weekend, getting some costumes for the kids. Some Toy Story.
Waiting in line for a Batman costume,
and I was like, you know what? Let me cop this. Let me cop this. Everybody knows about Batman and the Eagles. Love it. Love the confidence on this squad already. So give me a hot take, Gate. Defensively and offensively, that we're going to see from the Eagles today that helps us get a dub, like something that we've seen, like against the Vikings, it was the interception game. Against the Carson Wentz and the Washington, it was the sack game. What type of game are we going to see offensively and defensively from this Eagles team today?
I think the hot take would be Jacksonville's they're held underneath 100 yards rushing, because a lot of people are focused on Trevor Lawrence, and they should, because he's playing at a very high level. All respect to Trevor Lawrence. He's playing really, really good football. With that said, man, James Robinson and what they've been doing, Travis Etienne in their running game, that offensive line, it's been really good. My hot take is the way that we thought that Minnesota, everybody was a little like, man, here we go. Minnesota about to try to get behind these dudes. They're going to try to get a push. They're going to try to run Dalvin Cook and Madison at us, and we're going to be in for a long one. And then Fletch and these guys said, nah, this is not happening 2 weeks in a row. Forget it. That's the hot take. You keep them under 100 yards rushing and make Trevor Lawrence hold the football and try to beat you. Like, I think that would be the hot take, is like the Eagles forced them into that situation, and it plays into the Eagles' hands. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that would be the hot take. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we completely, stuff out the running game.
Yeah, I mean, just last game, Robinson was over 100 yards, 5.9 yards a carry. And real quick to the people in the chat, the reason I'm still wearing a white tee is because my lighting is messed up. If I wear, you can already see it a little bit. I'm like, it's anything black or any dark color clothes mess up my lighting. I got to get new lighting. I keep saying I'm going to, but if I put a black shorter on, I'll be like glittering. So I have to keep the contrast colors. But yeah, I agree with you. Stopping when a team is coming into a game where the weather pushes the run game forward. If we can stop the run game, then I think the ball's on our court and we could do whatever we want. However, we saw two different types of run defense. The Lions gashed us, but the Vikings couldn't. So this team has the ability to shut down the run. I think Washington ran the ball pretty decent last week. I don't got the numbers offhand, but if we could see something like what we did in Minnesota, man, this game is going to be ugly for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, got to get physical. That's the thing is like, Jordan Davis, now we're going into your fourth game. Gotta see it, man. You need to make these dudes come out here and work. And he did, man. There's a couple of games where I got to give Jordan Davis credit. He made them work to try to push him out of the hole, push him out of the gap. I mean, you start seeing photos of 3 and 4 guys in the picture on one guy. He's doing his thing. But we also saw the conditioning concerns. So where later in games, last week, man, he got kind of taken out of some gaps pretty easily last week towards the later part of the game. So we got to see kind of an uptick there. We want you to get more snaps, but you got to show the conditioning that you can handle it. I think most rookies, I think, face this challenge, to be honest. I don't think this is specific just to Jordan Davis, but nonetheless, like, you know what I mean? Like, we know this guy can be really good. We know he can have a really big impact on a game. We got to see it, man. I mean, Fletch has got to be consistent. He's been really good the last couple of weeks. Even more than Fletch, my bigger concern is with Hargrave, who's 2-gapped in Pittsburgh's system before, but I would not say that Hargrave is a great run defender. Really, really good pass rusher. I mean, he can get home and disrupt things, but we got to stand up to this challenge today, Mike. We need these dudes to really be, as Nick likes to say, dogs. We need that dog mentality for real today.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out to JB with the $2 super chat. He said, our O-line will stop Josh Allen. Great pregame show, guys. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. And yeah, that is another guy we got to keep an eye on. Josh Allen, he's playing at a high level right now. But again, credit hurts this season so far. 3 games, player of the month on the offensive side of the ball via the NFC. He's amazing. But this offensive line has been giving him a lot of time. He's been sacked 7 times. So it is what it is. I think a couple of them were him running and just sliding down behind the line of scrimmage too. So not really against the offensive line, but Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd, the pass rush for the Jags, that is what starts their defense. Their secondary, it ain't crazy, but it's solid. CJ Henderson is still there. No, he's not there no more. He's in Carolina.
Yeah.
Who are their DBs? Do you know?
I don't, because they've been so terrible. So, I'm not even trying to be funny, but they haven't been good. I mean, to be honest,
I would say that's still a weaker part of their defense. Yeah. Their front 7 is what's been playing at a high level, not so much their secondary. But I don't even know who's over there.
Speaking of someone who's probably going to get a lot of playing time today, regardless if he starts, or not, he's going to see playing time. Is Josiah Scott. The Jaguars gave up on Josiah Scott last year and traded him to the Eagles for nothing, basically. Can that bring a little motivation to him?
Yeah, and it just so happens that, Vontae Maddox misses this game. Josiah Scott has the opportunity to play against his former team. What was he, a 4th-round pick, I believe, of the Jacksonville Jaguars? Hey, if you're going to get your revenge, we need to see it today.
So they got Tyson Campbell, who was out of
Georgia.
A couple years ago.
We liked him.
Yeah, we did. Big physical dude. And then they got Darius Williams as their other corner. So, I mean, they got, Darius Williams is not the biggest dude, but, I mean, they've got guys that there's talent there. They're just not playing at a high level yet. And they got Shaquille Griffin. So,
he was hurt. Is he playing? Do we know if he's playing today?
I haven't had a chance to look at the inactives yet. Let me see. Inactives.
Because I know he was banged up.
Jacksonville. Yeah, I know the receiver's out. One of their receivers is absolutely out. Yeah, Trey Sermon is definitely making his debut today, which I think we all kind of knew that was going to be the case. Zay Jones is out. Kendrick Pryor is out. Snoop Connor, Tyree Gillespie, their safety. Monteric Brown, I think he's also a pretty young football player, corner for them. Chase On, one of their linebackers, and Cole Van Lanen is out for them. So now he's definitely in playing.
Yep.
Shaquille is. So
There we
I mean,
go.
we'll see. I mean, they got size. They got size on the outside, but I like the matchup for us on the outside. I do.
Yeah, and like I said, just knowing that through 3 weeks, every week there was a different leading pass catcher. It's not something to sneeze on. You know what I mean? That just shows the the talent at that level. Week 1 goes to AJ Brown, $155. Week 2 goes to Dallas Goedert with 82. Although that week 2 was wild because we had 4 guys over 65 yards, 4 players over 65 yards. That's not an easy task to get everybody involved that much. And then week 3 goes to the Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith. You just love to see it. And this game being rainy, I believe that the game plan should be focused around the run game, but I still want to see a couple deep shots. I just like the fact that we're taking them, and Jalen Hurts is letting it rip. He's not second guessing himself. He looks confident behind his offensive line, and he's slinging the ball down the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been doing that pretty well this year. I mean, I think the timing of those throws is what has, I think, struck a lot of us, because I mean, there was definitely some issues last season with that, to where the timing was off. I mean, Mike, you remember, you and I, we had that discussion after the that one Jalen Reagor ball, which was picked off, but it was like, man, something was really bad with the timing there, man, between receiver and quarterback. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Then you fast forward and you see the timing this season, and it's like, oh yeah, footwork looks really good. Timing these plays are a lot better. Like, I mean, this is a drastic improvement here.
Yeah, and again, he's even surprised me. I thought there'd be a little bit of a hiccup this season, especially early on, but Jalen Hurts put the work in the offseason, and it's definitely showing. And again, we got a team full of Batmans. Like I said, the talent around him it just made it that much easier. Man, just give me your general feeling of this game. With being 3-0 right now, never facing a loss, the only team undefeated. Like, there's something about, I got a lot of respect for Doug Peterson and his Jags team. I think that this is a very physical team. They're playing good football, but there's something about this game. I just don't feel like we can lose. I don't know why. I'm not trying to get confident myself. You know what I mean? I knock on some fake wood, but like going into the Vikings game, there was a little something, but this, I don't know. I don't know if it's the team that's doing it for me or the opposing team, but I just feel like I feel really confident today.
Conditions concern me about this game, because it does, you know what I mean? Like, you do have to get in there. You do need to sustain drives. You do need to be able to run the ball in this type of elements. But Mike, I mean, going back to what you said, I mean, Greg Cosell had a great breakdown where he was talking about 2x2 sets and why it's important and why it's important to see that. And what it basically leads to is the fact that there's a ton of confidence in the wide receivers to win on the outside. Because when you go to a 2x2 set, those outside corners are going to have to match up. Even in a zone system, you're going to run a lot of 4 verts out of that. So they're going to be in man, which means you got trust in your guy to beat another man. And we see that this season, that with Devontae Smith, with, AJ Brown, Quez Watkins has gotten a few big calls in turn. Maybe not so much the receptions yet. He got the one huge receptions for a touchdown, but he's gotten a lot of favorable calls in terms of pass interference where guys are just overwhelmed by his pure speed and athleticism. Like, we see it, right? Zach Pascal doing all the dirty work, Dallas Goedert just completely getting, involved in mismatches, because it's like, you're in a situation with Dallas Goedert. Like, what do you do here? like, how are you going to, you're going to try to man a linebacker up on this guy? Are you going to, basically say, hey, look, you safety, this dude, you need to be on him at all times. Like, are you going to actually try to use a nickel corner on this guy? Like, we're in such a good place in terms of the talent of this team. And we've seen them even go empty back set. That's how confident they are. Like, all right, look, they want to keep trying to bring all this heat. Empty back set them. We're going to get the ball out quick. Go empty back set. Now bring this pressure against us.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually using the empty back set a lot. And I normally don't like the empty back set, but I think we're really lethal out of that formation. Again, something just the route tree that we're seeing. We didn't see as many. I mean, we've caught more slants in the middle of the field this year than we did all last year. than we did all last year. And it's not just AJ Brown. It's Devontae Smith. It's Quez coming on across the field. Dallas Goedert. I mean, I'm liking what I'm seeing 100%. And we talked about this. We've been throwing the ball 30 plus times a game. So, like we all talked about Jalen Hurts, us being more of a 60-40 passer, a passing type team, blah, 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 blah. But I thought that we would work ourselves into that. And we came out slinging the rock for the first quarter of this season. And I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this would be a game that I think that it could remind teams, though, too, because of the conditions and everything. Like, hey, maybe we're an offense that is pass first, pass forward, if you will, early in games. But we know that we can run the rock. We know that we can do this thing at a very high level. And we're about to remind you guys that we still got this in this offense. This could be a game where they do that. I mean, we've been talking a lot about how great the passing game is. And I still think even in a run dominant game, there's going to be situations and times where you got to show that you can convert on those passing downs. And like, I just feel like we're in a good spot, man. I feel like this team is in a really, really good spot. I mean, the way I feel through the first, 3 weeks of this season compared to the way that we ended last season in the playoffs, night and day. It's night and day. It's like seeing completely different styles here. Like, it's like, wow, like this team has grown tremendously. Like, I knew there would be growth, Mike. I was shouting it all off season. I didn't think it was going to be this much growth.
Yeah. And like I said, the offense is still the offense. We just added AJ Brown. Mm-hmm. The main additions were on the defensive side of the ball, where we have like 4 or 5 new starters. I'm glad the defense has came along quickly since that Lions game. Jonathan Gannon, right now, I got nothing bad to say about him at all. Just need to continue to see that. Now, if there was a game where he gets passive, it could be this game with losing Avonte Maddox, because you heard them speak about Maddox in a couple press conferences this week. They rely a lot on Maddox, and they put him in some sticky situations where he's left on an island. They really have so much trust, and they're in this year showing that they're able to play Slay, Bradbury, CJ Gardner-Johnson the way they're playing them. They're able to blitz more because the confidence they got in Avonte Maddox. And I don't know if Josiah Scott is in there, if we can see some of these same looks. They even been blitzing Maddox.
Yeah, they've done a lot coming, from the safety in that nickel position. They've definitely done some overload blitzes coming off of one of those sides. And, it's interesting, right? Because none of us expected that from Gannon. We were like, okay, like, I was even saying, I was like, we were 16% blitz rate last season. If we just go up to 20%, like, no complaints. Yeah. At least we're making it 1 out of every 5 plays. You got to think that we might bring pressure against you. You know what I mean? Like, the guy's like, at this point, I think he's pretty close to like over 25%. So you're talking 1 out of every 4 plays now. So like, it's like, hey, you know what? Like, I can't complain. We went from like 1 out of every 6 plays to like 1 out of every 4 plays. He's been more aggressive, man. He's feeling himself. He likes this backfield. You can tell he likes the secondary. When I say back end, he likes the secondary, and he's a lot more confident in those guys' abilities to cover. And he's just, he's being more multiple than what we saw the season before. Even the pre and post snap disguise stuff, it's much different. We're rocking safeties in and out of the box a lot. Like, you could see that we always start off kind of like a base, almost like quarters coverage, and everything's always how we kind of start. And then post snap, you start seeing us really start moving stuff around. Examples of we played in inverted cover too, where we brought both those safeties down to play the flats and then took both of the corners and shot them out. That's an old Jim Schwartz thing. Mm-hmm. We've seen them go cover 6. We've seen them start off and they'll go into like cover 3 or even cover 1 into a man coverage situation. They just rock the safeties and mess with, teams pre and post snap. So, Gannon is definitely, it's been pretty impressive. It's been a pretty impressive start. And I want to hold out, man, because we're only 3 weeks in. But so far I like the start.
Yeah, I totally agree. And real quick, chat, let us know what's going on in that Vikings game, because I hear y'all complaining about the Vikings better win and what's going on. What's the score in that game? I don't even have it on. Vikings got to do us a solid and win just for that draft pick. You know what I mean? I'm still paying attention. I know it's way early to really talk about it now, but, before this game, the Saints had the 7th overall pick, and a loss would go a long way for just their confidence level. I know Andy Dalton's playing, but what is it, 28-25 Minnesota with 2 seconds left and New Orleans in field goal range? Oh my
Ugh.
God, they're going to try to send it to overtime.
Hey,
I'm about
I
to,
mean, if that pick turns into a top 10 pick, Mike, I mean, that's just it's robbery, man. It's
it,
robbery.
it's it is. It'll be legitly being again. The Eagles always know how to get over on the Saints for some strange reason.
Mhm.
We just able to fleece them all the time. And I don't want even to get into that draft pick, but knowing that we don't need to draft the quarterback with that is great because now you can look at defensive end, cornerback. We got to get younger there in some places. But I think you can always look at the offensive line depending on who's on the board and blah 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 there too. On the right side of the offensive line where it's a little bit older, the left
Yeah.
side is definitely younger. But man, this team is set up for the here and the future. And they said Vikings win. He missed it. He missed it.
There we go. I mean, we're in play for a top 10 pick, man. This is crazy. This is crazy that, like, think about even this offseason, like, yo, we got 3 first-round picks, man. I mean, it's not how it worked its way out, but still, I mean, we had 3 first-round picks, and we leveraged those 3 to get A.J. Brown, Jordan Davis, and to then leverage ourselves back into the following year's draft, which might turn in now top. It's I got to give Howie credit, man. He's really been thinking here recently, like, okay, how do I get the max value out of these things? And we got defensive end depth concerns past this season. Defensive tackle probably could be an area where you might see them target, depending on what happens with contract structure following this year, if they're going to extend anybody. But, I mean, there are corner, secondary. We got 2 30-year-old corners out there. They're balling. They're playing at a really high level, but probably not going to be guys that we're going to hear about 5 years from now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, we definitely got to figure out some things. There's no doubt about it. But how he's doing his things is keep kind of trying to leverage everything, right? He's constantly trying to leverage and keep those top 100 picks. So that way you can keep restocking the talent here. So, I mean, I don't know, Mike, I feel really good about where this team is, man. Like it's in solid hands in terms of the foundation that's being built.
Yeah. Now, this ain't really about the Jaguars game, but bringing this up, I do want to talk about it. We do got to figure something out because you got Kaiser White on a 1-year deal, James Bradbury on a 1-year deal. You still got to figure out C.J. Gardner-Johnson's deal as well. Who else? I thought there was one more.
I mean, Jalen's eligible after the end of this season. So, I mean, you could look at his contract extension, but that's not really going to impact the 2023 cap. It's going to impact the subsequent years, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson would definitely impact the cap for the upcoming year. Fletch, you got Hargrave. There's a few of these dudes you have to make decisions on.
Could you see a scenario that Fletch comes back for another 1-year deal?
Yeah, unfortunately I can. I hope it's not 14 million, but
hey,
I can.
Hey, listen, I know like Fletch is playing like he's playing pretty darn good right now. Him and Brandon Graham are leading the team with 3 sacks apiece.
Yeah.
But they're playing the fewest snaps they ever played in their career. But by playing fewer snaps, because of the bodies we have, like Davis, Hargrave, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick on the line, because we believe in the guys behind, they're being more productive this season than they were last year. BG wasn't there last year, and they're getting less snaps because they're always fresh bodies. And I love the rotation we got there. Still think you got to add a pass rusher. And there was reports that we could be looking at a possible free agent and or trade via a pass rusher. But that's something I think we can use with this top 10 pick, if depending on how the board feels. But getting back to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't even know what else to say.
I mean, look, they're a solid football team. I'm not trying to take anything away from Jacksonville. I think they've earned their record so far. They've been really good. With that said, everyone wants to say that we haven't played anybody yet. I disagree because name the team that we beat that had a losing record when they played us.
Yeah,
everybody was 500 and above when we played them. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it personally. I'd look at it like this, man. Like, this is a challenge they haven't faced yet, but this is also a team that it employs some of the things that we saw Tampa Bay be successful doing. I think the difference is that Vita Vea is there in Tampa Bay, and then with Washington they have Deron Payne, they have Jonathan Allen. I don't know that would say that Jacksonville's defensive line is anything even close to that in the interior. I will say that they do have the other Josh Allen. That's so confusing. There's a defensive end and a quarter. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
the other Josh Allen off the edge, linebacker, outside linebacker, rush edge kind of type. He can play. He's a good pressure guy. He can play. He's been balling for them. Like he's a decent ball player. But I don't think that they've played someone to quite our talent level yet.
Yeah, because as you said, look, the Chargers are the Chargers, but they were beat up. Herbert ended up leaving that game, I believe. Their wide receiving core was a little bit banged up. Their defensive side of the ball was banged up. So we definitely, credit them for the win and the way they put foots on their opponent these last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that this is the tallest task that Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars will be facing this year. With that being said, I think we should get into our score prediction and players on the offense and defense side of the ball. We can get off a little bit earlier so I can set up a little stuff for the play-by-play. But listen, we do got 328 people watching live. We are on 3 channels. Philly Fresh's channel, which he couldn't make it. He said he was going to try to jump in at the end. We still live on this channel too. Gate City's channel and Philly Talk Podcast. So make sure you hit that like. Make sure you subscribe. The like button just helps out the content creator. It's just pretty much saying, just hit the dang like button. With that being said, I'll let Gate go first. Give me your offense, defensive player, and the score prediction. Chat, let us know your offense and defensive player and the score prediction as well.
Offensive player of the game. I haven't picked him yet. I've been Devontae Smith until he finally proved me right. I just kept saying Devontae. I kept saying Devontae Smith. Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is making an appearance on Gate City's top offensive player of the game here. I'm going to say Miles Sanders, man. This feels like a Miles Sanders type game through the screens, through running the ball. I think he's going to have an opportunity today. I don't know that he'll achieve it, but I think the opportunity will be there, Mike. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm looking for. Is the opportunity should be there. Defensively, this is where I think it gets kind of interesting. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm going to go with a guy that C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think that Christian Kirk is their best player. He's the guy that you kind of have to pay attention to. And whether C.J. Gardner-Johnson is playing in the slot, playing the nickel corner position, or whether he's playing over the top as like a strong type safety. I know Gannon doesn't really use those terminology in terms of like post and box. He doesn't really do that. He wants his guys to be able to play both. But, we have coverage rules here. And part of that coverage rules is that when we're playing in our quarters, depending on the depth gained by the player and the stacks and the sets they use, your safety and your nickel are kind of interchangeable, depending on the coverage rule. So I think that C.J. Gardner-Johnson could have the opportunity this game in particular because of where the strength is. Evan Ingram, and then you look at Christian Kirk. Those are the 2 guys that I think that they're probably going to try to flow through their offense. So I'm going to say that, I think he could have a pretty big game here.
All right, and then your score prediction?
Score prediction. This is going to be one of those games I'm going to predict a double-digit win, but I think that the score could be misleading. I think the game could be closer than what the score will indicate. But I'm going to say it is raining, so I'm going to say 31-20 Philly.
Yo, that's my exact score.
All right, hang on. Let me change it up then. You can't have exact scores. Hang on. I'll say 34-23 Philly.
That was my second score. No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, man.
Nah,
We'll keep moving the goalpost. I'm going to say 41.
Yeah, right. No, because I had a Jags content creator on, and I literally said 31-20. I think it's closer than the score looks. I said exactly how you said. I think it's like a 24-20 game, and then we finish it in the second half by scoring a touchdown. They really can't do nothing with it. So that's what I said again. And it's crazy that you had the exact same feel to this game. Even with the weather conditions. So you got Miles Sanders and C.J. Gardner-Johnson for the offense and defensive player. I'm going to go on offense, and I'm going to say Dallas Goedert. I think as much as we will run the ball this game, the passes are going to be a little bit shorter. Dallas Goedert leads all tight ends with yards after the catch. My man is getting double digits yards after the catch. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be slippery. We've been using him in the screen game as well as Miles Sanders. I see Dallas Goedert having a big game. And the reason we don't take Jalen Hurts is because Jalen Hurts is the layup. So it's not like we don't believe Jalen Hurts is going to ball out. It's the fact that we try
it's
to
a cop-out answer.
we try to do a skill position player or somebody, Jalen Hurts is going to be Jalen Hurts season over there. And I should pick Batman. I don't know. I'm wearing the dang thing. I should have picked one of the Batmen. But I got Dallas Goedert in this game for standout offensive player. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to stay. You took somebody from the secondary. I'm going to take somebody from the defensive line. I think Fletch continues to eat. I see a sack and a half for Fletch this game. I'm hoping we can get 3 to 4 sacks. It's not going to be easy because Trevor Lawrence has only been sacked twice, and he's been getting the ball out very fast. So I'm going to go Fletch. I'm going to go Dallas Goedert, and my score prediction is 21-30. Eagles get the dub. Go to 4-0. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Look, this is a good game. And I love how the narrative always changes. Like, as soon as we beat the team, all of a sudden we haven't beat anybody. Never mind, we haven't beat a single losing team yet when we went into the game.
Exactly.
But, it's just funny how the goalpost keeps getting moved. I think the first opportunity we're going to have to beat a losing football team in terms of when we walk into the game that this is a losing team will be Arizona, which ironically might be the most difficult of the competition because it's on the road in Arizona. Although they haven't played very well, they do have enough weapons to beat you. You know what I mean? Like, it's ironic that we're gonna hear that all season. Like, y'all didn't beat anybody, but we beat you.
Yeah. We haven't beat anybody, but And like you said, everybody was either 500 or better. Lions were 0-0 when we played them. It is what it is. The Vikings were 1-0 when we played them. The Washington Commanders were 1-1, so they were all 500 or more. I don't want to hear all that stuff. So we'll see how it is. We'll be talking behind the scenes with LB, Simone, Fresh, and Gate. See about the post game, if we're going to do a post game or not. We'll talk about that. Listen, again, we got 444 people watching now. Again, we are live on 3 channels, so it might not be 444 in your respective chat, but subscribe to all the channels if you're new. Philly Talk Podcast, Gate City Sports Channel, and Philly Fresh, who was busy. He still got some airtime on his channel. Hit the like, though. It's free, it's easy, and it's good juju for the Eagles. I will be live for the play-by-play if you want to come through and chill with me. You got anything else, Gate, real quick before we get up out of here?
Hey, win by any means necessary. I don't really care about the score as long as the Eagles are on top. That's all that matters to me.
When it's all said and done, if we lead this game 4-0, the NFL is going to have to continue to put respect on this Eagles team. And man, 4-0 sounds terrific. So again, hit the like, subscribe, catch us on the post game and all week with Eagles content. I'll be live in about 20 more minutes. I got to take this Batman mask off. It hurts. It's a little tight. With that being said, until next time, y'all know what time it is. We out. Peace.